You're listening to the Balanced Educator Podcast, episode number 17. Welcome to the Balanced Educator. We're your hosts, Kaylee
and Josiane from EduCalm. Our intention is to equip and empower you to feel more calm, balanced, and joyful in all aspects of your life.
Hello, and welcome to the Balanced Educator Podcast. This week on the podcast, we are following up on Josiane and Sarah's interview from last week, where they talked a lot about slowing down, about living simply, and also about how to integrate mindfulness throughout your day, even when you are busy. So we're going to go a little bit deeper on this topic today and also talk about how you can bring this into your family life or your life in the classroom. So, Josiane,
love how you say my name.
Josiane. I could just call you Jo to make things easier for people. So, Jo, first off, let's talk about how we started our mindful practice and then kind of what that did for us in our lives.
So how far do you want to go back here?
However far you want to go.
Well, I think with us, and I think we've mentioned this a few times, is that it started with our gratitude practice. And from there came our mindfulness practice, right? Because we started noticing the good things in our life. We started noticing the good things in our life more and more, right?
Yeah.
And so a mindfulness practice was the natural next step.
Yes. And so what did the mindfulness practice look like for you following that gratitude practice? Like, what was the actual thing you did?
So for me, it was a meditation. It was a formal sit-down practice, couple minutes long every day to begin. And then I started taking that into my day-to-day. So I started just doing things more mindfully. So for example, every day I go for a walk with my dog, and I would choose days where I wouldn't think about, what happened before or what's going to happen later, but I would just be here now using my five senses. Often, like if I'm walking in the treed area by my house, I would just listen to the leaves, like the sounds of the wind and things like that. And just being fully present in the moment, and then catching myself when I, wasn't in that anymore. And I started thinking about other things. And I feel like more and more with time, like now it's like I'll be doing things and then I'll just like realize, oh, I'm just not in this moment right now. Right. So it's like with time, it's happening more and more naturally where I just do things mindfully.
Yeah.
And then I catch myself when I'm like totally not fully in it.
So you started with like deliberately trying to notice when you weren't in the moment and having a practice where you're like, okay, I'm really going to pay attention to what's actually happening right now. Recognizing when your mind shifts to, the past or the future, and then bringing it back using your five senses to whatever you're enjoying in the moment. And then that training of your brain to do that, to keep coming back, keep coming back, keep coming back. Now it's just like a mental muscle that exists and you catch yourself. Yeah.
That I'm still working on and will continue to work on forever, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And there's like easy times and more difficult times, right? Like it tends to be easier when we are giving ourselves more time to do the formal practice. I find that when I'm really taking the time, especially there seems to be something about the 30-minute mark. When I'm doing a 30-minute meditation in the mornings, I don't know what it is, but that length of time seems to get me into some sort of state that then is more easily transferable into the rest of my day. Whereas if it's under 30 minutes, like some days I, have a lot going on and I'm tired and I sleep in a little bit and my practice is 5 minutes. I find my brain thinking a lot more throughout the day, and it takes me longer to catch myself stuck in my thoughts.
Yeah. And also, like, I've just had moments since beginning this practice. Like, there have been days where it's like impossible for me to like be in the present moment because, like, for example, before I left for my yoga teacher training in Bali, like, there was a good week there where it's like I just couldn't like do my meditation properly. You know what I mean? Like, not properly. That's not the right word, but like I couldn't just sit there and be in the present moment. It was like really hard. Yeah. But then it was like interesting just to watch me be like that. And yeah.
It's interesting to watch yourself and your ego in those moments where you're like, okay, I'm gonna have my mindfulness practice, and then you're focusing on your breath, and then you start thinking about something right away, and you're like, no, I'm not supposed to be thinking. And then you start like getting mad at yourself because you can't stop thinking. And then you kind of just can watch this cycle of just the chaos in your brain, and hopefully you just laugh at yourself.
Yeah. And now when I have days like that, I just let it be.
Yeah.
Like, if I'm like, okay, today is not a day where I can just like be, you know, focusing on my breath or in this moment, who cares? I'll just watch my thoughts. Like, I'll just see all the crazy things that are going through my head.
Yep. Yeah.
I'm like a lot more compassionate with myself now.
That's awesome. And that takes a while to recognize that, you know, you can't be perfect. I love to tell people that on the hardest days, that's the best exercise for your brain. It's like, you know, if you're going to go to the gym, you can lift a 5-pound weight super easy. Those are the days that you're doing a mindfulness practice and there isn't anything crazy going on in your life. So you're not overthinking, or, you know, you don't have a ton going on in your brain. But when life gets hectic, that's like you're going into the gym and you're lifting heavy weights and it's harder. So you're building stronger muscles. So I kind of like to trick myself into being like, oh, today's a more difficult practice because my brain is crazy, which means that I'm actually building stronger muscles. So it's actually a better practice. Kind of flip it around on its head.
It's important to have that growth mindset.
Yes, exactly. Right. Yeah. Like, it's going to take practice and it's not going to be easy all the time. And it would be boring if it was easy all the time. Right.
Yeah. And speaking of growth mindset, we're working on a module right now for growth mindset for EduCalm Classroom. Really excited about that. Anyway, that's a side note.
I'm actually so excited about that one. Like, we brainstormed about this module the other day and like, it was so much fun. I can't wait to share it.
Kaylee and I love brainstorming.
It's my favorite thing. It just, the creative juices just flow. So, Jo, how did your seated mindfulness practice or your walking mindfulness practice, the intentional formal practice, how did that start trickling into your life? What changes did you see?
So as I mentioned earlier, then, you know, how I started to kind of bring my mindfulness practice into my day-to-day. Mm-hmm. That helped me, obviously, to be more in the present moment. And as I became, you know, more in the present moment, it's like life slowed down. It's like I just got to take in life at such a slower, more awesome pace.
It's almost like more deliberate.
Yeah. And so that really encouraged me to want to just live more slowly.
Yeah.
It's like through that formal practice of sitting down and doing my mindfulness practice. And then that flowed into me practicing my mindfulness in an informal way, just in day-to-day life, which led me to just want to live more slowly, more mindfully, and even simple things like, and I know I had said this to you last summer and you laughed at me, but like, I started cooking, but only instead of doing 7 things at once, I would just do one thing at a time.
Yeah.
And it would take me so much longer to put my supper together, but it was just such an enjoyable experience. So started cooking mindfully.
But that's awesome, because how often do we think of cooking as a chore, and you turned it into a joyful experience that you got to savor?
Yeah, and it's not always like that, but I do catch myself now just like totally being in the moment while cooking, where like it's sometimes an hour has passed by and I wouldn't even know it.
Yeah.
Because I'm just like focused on that one thing that I'm doing. And then if I'm doing like 2 dishes, it's like I'll prep one at a time, and I won't do them both at once, because that's chaotic and stressful, I find.
Yeah. In last week's episode, Sarah mentioned a lot about like avoiding overwhelm. And that's totally been my experience. Was I recognized when I actually took the time to sit in silence, like I don't know if I had ever taken the time to sit in silence in my entire life. Like until I actually
definitely hadn't.
Yeah. And then at first the silence was so scary. Like just being alone with myself, with my thoughts, with nothing to distract me or busy myself, or like it can be scary to be alone with yourself. And then over time, once I got used to it, I started to love the silence. And then weird things like I oftentimes started driving, and like a 30-minute drive, and I wouldn't turn on music and I wouldn't listen to a podcast. I would just drive in complete silence or cook in complete silence and just remove any distraction, anything that created overwhelm or made my brain have to deal with many tasks at once. And that flowed into like my closet, into wanting to purge my closet so that when I looked in there to get dressed in the morning, it was easier and simple to choose my outfits.
Yeah, I didn't even realize how overwhelmed I used to be trying to pick out my outfits.
Yeah.
Because now it's so simple that I'm like, how did I like sift through my closet for it was so intense, it seems like before, and now it's just so simple.
Yeah.
Because there's only things I love in there, and it's the things all go together.
Yes. And that's one thing that you and I have been enjoying exploring together is like when we buy a new item, we actually think about like, is this going to go with everything I own? And that's how we decide if we want to purchase it. Because when it's time to get dressed in the morning, I want all my things to go together. So I don't have to be like, oh, do these pants go with this shirt? And then I have to try it on. And then, actually, I don't like how I feel in this. And now everything in my closet, I love how I feel in it. And I can just throw it on. I don't need to test it out first. And it saves a lot of time in my day.
Yeah, it's just, life seems so much simpler. And I've done that just across my house. Like we've just gotten rid of so much stuff, and there's still more things that we could get rid of. But ever since, I started this process, it's like I just feel so much lighter, and my days are smoother, and like I don't waste time looking for things, or I don't know. It's so liberating.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, our brains experience decision fatigue. Like our brain can't handle making a ton of decisions in a day. And I've actually heard that like a tactic for car salesmen is that when they're selling a vehicle, they ask a bunch of questions before getting to the point of negotiating the price, because by that time
you're tired.
Exactly. By that time you're tired of making decisions. So you'll just be like, okay, fine. You don't want to think about it anymore, which is a good tactic.
No kidding. I'll remember that next time.
Yeah. If you go to buy a car, just say, can we just talk about price first and then talk about the other stuff later?
That's so interesting. And yeah, very smart.
Yeah. So yeah, living with less stuff has been so liberating, and like just a weight off my shoulders in terms of things in my house. And my husband and I in the summertime, we actually moved to my family cabin, and we live in a fifth wheel trailer for like 5 or 6 months of the year, it ends up being.
Yeah.
And like all we have in there is a bed, a tiny little bathroom, and a tiny little kitchen. And so it's like about the size of our bedroom. Our trailer is probably smaller than our bedroom at home. And that was such a learning experience for me to recognize how little I actually needed. It's funny, when you get rid of stuff, you just like forget that you ever needed those things.
Well, and it's like, it's just a good experience to have. It's like how Sarah last week talked about living out of a tent and how she thought it would be like such an impossible mission, you know? And then it turns out that like, we don't need half the things that we own.
It's funny because we think owning a lot of like kitchen gadgets or like a lot of stuff, we always think it's going to make our life more convenient, but oftentimes it actually makes it more complicated. And like, you know, going to our little tiny trailer kitchen, it's like I have one mug, and when I'm done drinking my coffee or my tea in the morning, I wash it, and I also use that mug for water, and I use one thing for everything, and it's just so simple. Doing dishes is easy because there's like 3 dishes to do.
Okay, and now I'm wondering too, like how, because in classrooms there's often so much stuff, right? Because you have like your math manipulatives, you've got like paper, so much paper, you've got books, and you've got like, I always found my classroom to look overwhelming.
Yes.
Even though I tried to keep it as simple as possible. Like, how can we bring this idea of simplifying into the classroom?
Well, I think it's important to just recognize first that one thing that I see quite often is having tons of posters on the walls so that students, you know, they can look at their multiplication poster, they can look at their, you know, alphabet posters. But when there's so many posters on the wall, they're not using those. They're not looking at them because there's just overwhelm. There's too much going on. And so it's no longer a tool. It's now a distraction. So I think it's really important to only have the things there that are really necessary and really useful, and taking down the things that aren't super necessary and useful. And, you know, maybe that means like I have a friend that she only pulls out the stuff for the walls and for having in her class that are for that unit. And as soon as she's done, she puts them in a box, she puts them away, and then she pulls out the stuff for the next unit. So the same thing isn't up on the wall all year round.
But I even struggled because a lot of classrooms barely have any storage. So then all of those boxes are just sitting there, exposed often.
Yeah.
It
can definitely be, you definitely have to get creative with the space, right? And just really discern, like, is this really necessary? Like, is this basket of crayons, like, do my kids really use these, or do they have their own in their desk? Or, you know, just going through the items in your classroom and deciding, is this actually improving the learning of my student, or is it distracting?
I like that. Like, asking yourself that as a question to make a decision.
Yeah.
That's great.
And I think that same question can be asked in terms of the use of technology in the classroom. I know that the first year I started teaching, there was a huge push for technology in the classroom. And I was actually a pilot teacher for having one-to-one computers. So each student brought their own computer to school. And so there was a push to do everything on the computers. And at a certain point, I had to ask myself, like, is this actually improving their learning? Like, are they learning more? And oftentimes the answer was no, that it was, you know, it was a distraction. It was, you know,
and it's possibly better to just simplify, right?
Yes, exactly. So
keep things simple.
Exactly. So that question of, is this improving the learning, or having this in the classroom, how is it making me and my students feel? Like, what feeling is it generating by having this thing here?
I love that.
Yeah. So in the classroom, we talked about like getting rid of stuff that doesn't have to be there, maybe getting creative. Or another thing too is like, can one thing be repurposed in different ways? Can you use one thing for several types of activities or for several different things? So another thing that when we talked about slowing down in our lives and creating some space, some moments in our lives where it was just, we just got to be quiet or enjoy the moment. How can we bring that into the classroom, this simplifying in the classroom?
I think that one mistake that I made as a new teacher was that I would try to have all of these projects for every class, and we were doing different things in every course, like, English, French, math, sciences, social studies. Like, it was something different every time, which I very quickly realized was way too overwhelming for me and for my students. So I think one way that we can simplify is to make things transdisciplinary, which means to take courses and do them together. So, for example, I would do projects where, like, for example, math, sciences, social studies, and French were together. Like, I was doing it at once. And yes, sometimes I would, pull the kids aside to like teach them a specific math concept related to the project, but that they would go back and work on the project that was transdisciplinary.
I love that. So it's like you're always working with the same stuff. You're not jumping from one mode of thinking to the other. You kind of have a theme, and then you're working these different areas, these different like learning outcomes from all the different subjects that you're working on into the same theme.
And one thing I found when I started doing that was that I, as a teacher, felt way less overwhelmed when I, simplified, because first of all, I didn't have paper everywhere, and I didn't have like baskets full of different projects all over the place. So the classroom itself was like easier to manage. And also I found that there were less transitions in my day. Therefore, and we all know, like, teachers know that transitions are like the most chaotic time of the day.
Yes.
So by taking away some of those transition moments, it was really slowing down the day and making it just simpler and easier to manage, not just for me, but for everyone.
Yeah. And then, like, you probably experience a bit more flow too through the day. It's this less of a choppy, okay, this, now that. And you're kind of organically, as you're working within the same project, just slowly shifting from one sort of subject to the other, or maybe even not, depending how you set it up. Maybe some kids are working on the French portion of the project, other kids are working on the math stuff. And that can almost make it fun as a teacher to be able to go around and do a lot of one-on-one work.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was an all around good thing to do. And I think my kids learned a lot more.
Yeah. Yeah.
At the end.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I mean, if you can even just sit down with and like calculate how much time, like how many minutes in a day and then how many hours over the year you were actually saving by reducing those transition times.
Yeah. And then sometimes, like, if I felt that my kids needed to like move, instead of giving them a transition time, I would do a movement break with them, which was way more productive and useful for them, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So, yeah.
Awesome. So good chat. Simplifying, removing distractions, removing the things that create overwhelm in our lives, and kind of just looking at the things we're doing and the things we're owning. And is it bringing more joy in our life, or is it creating distraction and overwhelm? And just beginning to be more mindful with those choices.
Definitely feel like we could keep talking about this for a while. So possibly a future episode.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so now we have something to share that's super exciting.
We're so excited.
So excited. So we have partnered with Solstice Travel, and we are going to be bringing you guys 3 travel, yoga, and mindfulness trips this year.
You're so excited. So we will be going to Costa Rica, iconic Costa Rica yoga and adventure from November 30th to December 9th. And then spring break for teachers to unplug, unwind, and recharge at the Riviera Maya in Mexico.
Woo.
And April 17 to the 24th, we will be going to Belize.
Yeah.
Women and the sea.
Oh,
And there may be some shark stuff involved.
Some shark stuff. Okay.
More info to come.
Yeah. That reminds me of shark pose with the kids. When we do yoga in schools, we do shark pose. It's like you lie on your stomach and you lift up your feet and your head and then we inhale as we lift up, and then on the exhale we go rah, 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 rah.
Show your teeth.
Shark teeth.
Yeah.
Oh man. So each one of these trips has its own unique flair, its own unique allure, and is going to be carefully crafted for a different type of experience. So I'm super also excited. I'm excited for all of them, but like really also excited about the spring break one that's specifically for teachers, because I think it's going to be so fun to unwind with teachers that all, have something in common. Oh, yes.
Yeah, I'm so excited.
Yeah. And there's something amazing that happens at a yoga retreat. It always seems that the perfect group of people come together, that it opens everyone up. You have this transformative experience. You never could have expected what would come out of it, but it's always just amazing.
Yeah. And the connections that you make, like the lifelong connections, just amazing.
Absolutely.
I'm so excited.
So excited. So if you guys are interested in learning more about this and you want to get all the juicy details, you just have to sign up for our mailing list and we will email you all the awesome details. You can do that by going to our show notes. We'll have a link in there, so it'll be really easy for you to sign up for our mailing list. It's podcast.educalm.com/TBE, as in the Balanced Educator 017, because this is episode 17.
Also, if you're in Winnipeg or Manitoba, we're actually going to hold an information session on June 4th. So we'll also put the information for that in the show notes.
One more time, the show notes, just go to podcast.educalm.com/TBE017, or just go to podcast.educalm.com and you'll see episode 17. You can click on it and you'll find all of the information from this episode there. So thank you guys so much for being here with us. This was a fun episode.
Okay, see you later. Have a great week, everyone.